10 minutes before 8 o'clock. Thank you so much for staying with Morning Live. Now, the University of Cape Town remains the top-ranked tertiary institution in South Africa. Recently, the Times Higher Education released a list of the top 1,000 institutions in the world. Even though 8 local universities made it to the list, researchers are, on the other hand, warning that South African universities could disappear from the top 200. But to take this conversation further, I'm joined by Professor Ahmed Bawa. He is Chief Executive Officer at Universities South Africa. Prof, good morning to you and thank you so much for coming.
Good morning, Palisa, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much indeed. This is, of course, not good news. Well, I made mention of the University of Cape Town on my introduction, but VETS is also there as well.
Yes, of course, yes. Look, I think that we have to keep in mind that there are thousands of universities around the world.
Yeah.
In fact, the USA itself has something like 4,000 institutions of higher education. So when we've got 2 institutions in the top 200, that's nothing to be sneezed at.
It's an achievement.
It's an achievement.
Yeah.
And of course, and there are other universities that have come into the top 1,000 and so on, and that's all very good news. Having said that, of course, we have to be concerned about the fact that, that we seem to be performing less well than we were a short while ago. And of course, there are a number of reasons for that. I mean, the one is just the instability in our system over the last 2 to 3 years. And more importantly, of course, the fact that, the funding of higher education has really been hit very severely over the last 10 to 15 years. So, those are things that we have to worry about. Having said that, these ranking systems, we have to be careful about them. There are many of them, and each of them has its own kind of, criteria.
System that they use and criteria.
Criteria, data collection,
That is actually my concern as to what do they base their research on before they come to this ranking?
So, nearly all of them, except for 1 or 2, nearly all of them are really based on the performance of research-intensive universities. Now, the fact of the matter is that we might think of University of Cape Town, WITS, Stellenbosch as research-intensive, but they're not really research-intensive in the context of global research-intensive institutions. Just one little piece of data. If you go to California Institute of Technology, for example, the staff-student ratio is something like 1 to 10. We are operating at between 20 and 35 in our universities.
So in a way, it's not necessarily sort of a fair assessment on us.
Correct. And the systems don't really cater for the universities that play these multiple roles. So even though we might think of Cape Town, Pretoria, Stellenbosch and so on as research-led, if you like, that's the way they usually talk about themselves, they play other very big roles. They are really, they have much wider access, they play roles in terms of transformation. Now those things aren't measured.
They're not measured,
Here's another example, which is a very important example. One of the key criteria in almost all of the research, or all of the ranking systems, is the internationalization of the academic staff. Now in South Africa, our major challenge is to produce a South African
intellectuals,
African generation of academics, and so that of course immediately counts against our universities.
All right, but I was also reading the report, Prof. Apparently issues such as the student protest and the insufficient funding models, as you said, contributed to this decline.
Of course, and we have to, we shouldn't be complacent. I mean, we shouldn't think that the research, that these rankings aren't important, therefore we shouldn't worry about them. No, I don't think that's right. In fact, we should think about the rankings not so much as where we perform and so on, but as a way of benchmarking. Saying how are we performing against other systems? And that's an important role that they play. And I'm not one that believes that we have to have universities in the top 10 or top 20 to be a highly innovative society. So I don't believe that. I mean, all you have to do is look at places like Italy. Who would deny that Italy is one of the most innovative societies in the world? But they certainly don't rank in the in the top 10%.
But what's your personal view? Are you perhaps worried that South African universities might appear on the list?
I am concerned that we are slipping. There's no question about that. And I'm not, and I think that we have to pay attention to what would appear to be the underlying reasons. The instability, the underfunding. Those are very important, and of course the broken down school system we have.
I wanted to mention that, Prof, because there's been a lot of debate lately around our quality of education as to, people hold their different views that we're not producing, quality academics.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a very serious question. And, and the fact of the matter is that our universities, even University of Cape Town, Stellenbosch and so on, focus a lot on student development, which these other places like Oxford and so on don't, So we have to keep in mind that our universities are operating in a very particular context, and that, although we must pay attention to these rating systems, we shouldn't be overly concerned that we're just in the top 200 and not in the top 100.
But what needs to be done going forward? I mean, you're saying that we should pay attention to the ratings, but we're doing things a South African way.
Yes, but we have to pay attention to the fact that we cannot afford the kind of instability we had over the last 2 to 3 years. That is damaging to our system. Set aside the ranking systems, that's damaging to our system. The second thing is we have to canvass the government to achieve a better funding system for the universities. And we are doing that, and we are constantly working on that, and we have huge projects on that. The third thing is to try and ensure that we get the schooling system right, because if at the end of the day, that's the pipeline.
The basic.
The basic pipeline into our system. And if we don't get that right, then universities are going to be picking up things that should be done in the school system, but which are carried over into the university system.
Yeah, I suppose we're still waiting for the report on the commission that looked into the feasibility of free education.
And it's a mystery about what's in there.
That will also have an effect on this, of course.
Correct.
Yeah, Prof, let's leave it at that for now, but thank you so much for talking to us.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much indeed. Well, there you have it. That's Professor Ahmed Bawa. He's Chief Executive Officer at University of South Africa, talking to us about the latest rankings. The University of Cape Town and Wits, of course, remains the top-ranked tertiary institutions in the country. Of course, on the other hand, there's a warning coming through that South African universities could disappear from the top 200. Well, let's take a break here on Morning Live. 8 o'clock news bulletin follows. Stay tuned.